Dismantling the face is the same as breaking the wall of the signifier and getting out of the black hole of subjectivity.
Flicker theory with Tadas Vinokur. Flicker theory with Tadas Vinokur.
You know where you're at. You're at Flicker Theory Reviews. Today we're going to talk about the face. Hello everyone. Welcome to Flicker Theory Reviews. I'm your host, Tadas Vinokur. I actually wrote it down. I don't really know why. Today I will review a different chapter from Deleuze and Guattari's A Thousand Plateaus. The name of the chapter is Year Zero, Faciality. In this chapter, Deleuze and Guattari examine the abstract machine of faciality. That is to say, they examine the significance of the face as a common metaphor for expression. Indeed, according to Deleuze and Guattari, certain power formations within the society do place an emphasis on the standard of face. The standard of face is essentially an imposed abstract machine which distributes labels or faces to the people who are in need of them. Deleuze and Guattari say you don't so much have a face as slide into one, which means that certain types of faces or identities are provided for the human being who may, if he is so lucky, slide into one, the face, and gain social acceptance. In turn, this chapter is a theoretical cornucopia for problematics of religion, racism, and capitalism, as they have a lot to do with social acceptance. Let's talk about facialization in more concrete terms. According to Deleuze and Guattari, the face is a product of signifying regimes that are often intertwined together. The signifying regime and post-signifying regime. Both of these regimes are discussed in more detail in the chapter called Several Regimes of Signs. Facialization. So, the signifying regime is basically a mode of meaning distribution which is based on a single authority. A single despotic figure can start to circulate the ways to interpret the signs. There's usually a myriad of state officials that distribute the meaning of the sign, which is forced on them by the despot. However, since the meaning of the sign keeps flowing from a single finite source, the despot, people's capacity to interpret the signs correctly becomes extremely paranoid. Because nobody really knows what the clear message of the despot is. It is always mediated by representatives. However, the despot's orders are nonetheless omnipotent. The post-signifying regime, on the other hand, is based on people's ability to turn away from the despot, the center authority, and to create their own subjectivities. The post-signifying regime works by virtue of the line of flight. We heard about that before, which takes the person away from the face of the despot. Simply put, the post-signifying regime allows people to create their own subjectivities by challenging those that are produced by the despot. However, this does not mean that the centralized despotic power turns weak in post-signifying regime. Not at all. It simply becomes more bureaucratized. It shifts its focus from personal control to universal normalization of the subjectivity. These two regimes, the signifying regime and the post-signifying regime, are always intertwined. They always work in conjunction with each other. In other words, when the despot creates clear-cut orders, specific subjectivities or recognizable faces, he also creates an opening for certain subjective deviances, lines of flight, which ultimately create new distinct subjects. So the abstract machine of faciality functions in accordance with both of these signifying regimes. Faciality organizes the parts of both the signifying and post-signifying regimes. Let's go back to the issue of normality and deviance. As I mentioned before, signifying and post-signifying regimes function first by establishing binary oppositions or exclusive disjunctions, on a white wall. For example, the despot claims that there's only a white man or a black man, a woman or a man, a child or an old person, a rich person or a poor person, and so on. Then, with the post-signifying regime, we approach the idea of subjectification. In this case, the subjectivities are no longer forced into exclusive disjunctions, either this or that. Instead, they are judged, evaluated by their capacity to conform to the norm. People may conform or not conform to the norm, while their capacity to conform is measured in degrees. The subjectivities that deviate from the norm, they are not necessarily excluded. Instead, they're put into what Deleuze and Guattari call black holes, which are the positions where the subject absorbs the signifiers produced by the despot. This idea of black holes emphasizes Deleuze and Guattari's perspective in that they think that racism, for example, or deviance from the white man's face functions in degrees. There's no exterior within the machine of faciality. They're simply faces that deviate from the face. That is to say, there are no people on the outside of the regime of signification. Naturally, we're left with the simple question: what would the standard of face look like? In this plateau, Deleuze and Guattari put it quite simply: the standard of face is the face of Christ. In fact, that's the reason why the name of the chapter is Year Zero, Faciality. Year zero because we count our time from the moment the Christ was born. The birth of Christ for Deleuze and Guattari is the date of the faciality machine. That's the moment that defines and solidifies the historical privilege of the white man. The archetype of the white man defines the semiotics of capitalism, where people have to be put into individualized boxes so to serve the system more smoothly. Think of the father and son distinction, as well as the distinction of the worker and boss. These are the ways that the faces are distributed by virtue of white wall, black hole relationship. Again, white wall is the surface onto which the face of signification is inscribed. And black hole is the hole that absorbs all these subjective imperatives and creates subjects, absorbing all these subjective imperatives right now, actually. Faciality, then, is a machine that functions by creating and distributing signifiers on the white wall and solidifying subjects in the black hole. Deleuze and Guattari are therefore determined to answer the question: how can we break this white wall and disavow the black hole? For Deleuze and Guattari, the creation of the face is political. That is to say, face as a signifier defines the rigid inequality of the system. If there's an all-encompassing face, such as the face of the Christ, all other faces will be considered as deviations. All other faces will lack something. Knowing that the game of politics is the game of the capable, the machine of faciality becomes the deciding organizational system that decides who gets the right to speak, right to vote, and the right to live. In a word, faciality is the source of racism, classism, and sexism. Deleuze and Guattari say, therefore, that the action of dismantling the face is absolutely crucial. For them, such an action would constitute the politics of real becomings, where people don't simply sit in their black holes and don't just simply slide into a prefabricated face once in a while. Instead, people should dare to dismantle the face while utilizing an exploratory probe head machine, as they call it. Probe head machine. Deleuze and Guattari say the face is not a necessary stage, but a tool for which a new use must be invented. Which means that the probe head is a tool that will allow the faciality machine to become absolute and positive. In other words, if we understand the face as an apparatus for which a new use must be invented, as Deleuze and Guattari say, the probe head machine is exactly that new use. The new use that deterritorializes faciality machine and turns it into a metamorphosis machine. Finally, if the faciality machine is responsible for the racism, sexism, and classism, and all kinds of other forms of discrimination, dismantling this machine should stand as a humane imperative. Deleuze and Guattari in this chapter explain how exactly the signification on the white wall and post-signification on the black hole functions. Most importantly, they describe the way in which every one of us can explore our possibilities within the faciality machine. By utilizing the concept of the probe head, we can, to quote Deleuze and Guattari, break through the walls of significance, pour out the holes of subjectivity, and steer the flows down lines of positive deteriorization or creative flight. We can open a rhizomatic realm of possibility, affecting the potentialization of the possible, as opposed to arborescent possibility, which marks a closure, an impotence. So, let's break through the walls of significance and explore something really new. A new exploratory face. Thank you for watching. See you next time.